Have you ever regretted not following your gut instincts and deciding to do something just to please other people? Have you ever regretted blurting something out in the heat of the moment and hurting a relationship as a result? Have you ever regretted not reaching out to someone when your heart really spoke to you to do so and you lost that friendship? Well, you know what? We've all been guilty of that. And the problem that all of this indicates is that we as human beings are not in charge of our emotions. We don't even know how to live with them. So if you're in that boat, stick around because this is going to be the episode for you. Welcome, everybody. I'm Dr. Lucille, and I am a holistically and spiritually oriented psychiatrist and psychotherapist. And my mission in life is to help people individually and collectively heal from all the relationship trauma that we've gone through over the past 5 years so that we can come together and start creating a world that we really desire to live in. And maybe even get to a point of experiencing unconditional love. So this video today is all about mastering relationships, which requires mastering our emotions. You know, the thing about our emotions is they're very inconvenient and they're very threatening. Let's look at it that way, because that's how we've been conditioned to see them. We in this world are we're conditioned to be efficient and compliant workers. Let's be honest about it. And in order to be an efficient and compliant worker, you need to not have those pesky emotions. They're kind of inconvenient and they're a bit of a pain, so they are not required on this journey. In fact, we've all been conditioned to believe things like we're very strong when we ignore our emotions. We're strong when we don't cry at a funeral. We're strong when we go through hard times and never express our feelings about it. So emotions are kind of taboo, and it's no wonder that a lot of us actually have a fear of getting in touch with our emotions. However, as human beings, we are meant to experience all of our emotions. We are meant to live and work with them beautifully, kind of like a conductor of an orchestra. All of our emotions are really like the instruments in the orchestra. They are vital to everything in our lives, and they all work together. So we, as the conductor of the orchestra, we need to learn how to master these emotions, how to conduct them in a way that fulfills us fully as the human beings that we are. So the biggest and the most important thing about emotions is to understand what their proper place is in our lives. So emotions are really a signaling system. Number one, most important, they signal to us whether a situation or a relationship is aligned with us, whether we feel good about it, or we have some unsettling feeling about something. They signal to us whether something is right or something is wrong in a situation. Now, in our extraordinarily chaotic world, where we have, been pulled apart and thrown into conflict with one another, and we've been told lies upon lies upon lies upon lies. We don't have a great navigational system to tell us what's the truth and what action needs to be taken, except for things like our emotions. Our emotions are like a very important GPS system in our lives. And we need to be able to recognize them as much as possible in the moment, and then learn from what they're telling us, and then act on what they're telling us. So signaling is one of the most important things about emotions. If we don't have that signaling system, then we end up relying on our brains, which actually they don't pick up as much of the cues in our environment, in ourselves. They just don't pick up as much of that information as our emotions do. Our emotions will pick up important information long before our brains figure that out. Another reason that emotions are so important is they provide pleasure. They provide us with happiness in our lives. What's the point of living if you have no emotions, no happiness, no joy, no sense of accomplishment and relief, or a sense of contentment? If you don't have those feelings, what's the point of living? Then everything becomes gray. And so this is one of the big problems about suppressing emotions, which is what most of us have learned to do. When you suppress the negative emotions, things like anger or shame or hurt or grief, you're not just suppressing those emotions, you're suppressing all your emotions. Because the way the brain is wired is that all the emotions are being processed and expressed through certain parts of the brain, like the amygdala, etc. But all the emotions are expressed and processed through those brain parts. And so if you try to suppress some of them, you're suppressing all of them. You're giving an instruction to your brain to mute everything down. So you don't want to mute down the negative emotions, not only because they're a signaling system, but because you automatically mute down all your emotions. And then you walk around in life like a robot. You feel depressed. Life feels gray. Another thing about emotions is they help us to release tension. And there's so much talk in social media about regulating the nervous system. And that is what emotions help us to do. They signal again to us that we're under too much stress, we're overwhelmed, whatever it may be. And, we need to pause and regulate our nervous system. We may need to just sit and stare out a window or do something to soothe ourselves. But if we give vent to those emotions, even if it's just to scream because everything's gone wrong in your day, even letting out that in that frustration in that intense way can help to reset the nervous system, give some release and relief. So, and another thing that is very important is that emotions help us to bond with one another. Through empathy, through humor, through love. And if we don't have full access and full mastery of our emotions, then we have trouble relating to people and connecting to people. And this often happens, of course, in trauma. And so many people have been traumatized over the last 5 years and have not fully healed. And so that leads them to, again, be somewhat emotionally muted down or fearful of connection with other people. And of course, then they don't make those connections, and life, again, loops into feeling lonely and gray, and it does not do anything to heal us from that trauma. All of the best relationships, if you think about all the best relationships that you've ever had, you may have those beautiful moments, the memories of the joy and the laughter and the mutual accomplishments, and just feeling a heartfelt gratitude or love for the people, in some of the people in your life. And that is such a precious gift. And it keeps us engaged in relationships and doing the work of relationships when we have those very pleasurable feelings for one another. So a problem that we have when we do suppress our emotions, as I said, it's not just that we suppress the negative ones, we suppress the positive ones along with them. And when that happens, if we suppress for long periods of time, the emotions actually affect or put our bodies out of balance. And this is when you get chronic illness. This is when I think most of us have experienced, periods of stress where we've just had to work through it, and we haven't been able to really engage with our feelings or nurture ourselves through our difficult times, and we end up with headaches and backaches. Maybe we become accident prone. We get digestive upset. And over time, what happens is chronic disease. So our emotions, we are very, very encouraged. We must be encouraging ourselves to keep connected with our emotions, to keep working with them. They're not our enemies. We do not need to go into conflict with them. They are our friends if we know how to master them. So one thing that is important is to label emotions. Now, one of the things that a lot of people have grown up with is that they've just been taught that certain emotions are unacceptable, whether your parents maybe just ignored you if you did something, if you expressed some emotion they didn't like anger or grief or sadness. Maybe they turned away and just ignored you, or you may have been punished. You may have been verbally corrected. And in unfortunate incidents, you may have even been hit. So even though there's been an upwelling of great parenting education over the last few decades, the problem is that life happens. Life is very stressful, very chaotic, and parents are overwhelmed. Especially single parents are overwhelmed. And so even if they so desire to do the best for their children, they may not be emotionally attuned. They may not be able to help children master their emotions. And certainly you, as the child growing up, you're always capable of learning how to parent yourself and learning how to overcome the things that, either created difficulty for you with your emotions, or where you simply didn't get the support. You can always catch up on that, no matter how old you are, to be perfectly honest. If you have a desire to master your emotions, you're going to do it. So parents ideally should be able to help you label your emotions. That's key number one. So you're crying in your crib and your mom comes over and says, "Oh, I'm so sorry you're feeling sad. What's the matter? Or are you hungry? Or, are you frustrated? Are you angry? What's happening? So they will start mirroring back to you whatever emotion you're expressing. They will have look on their face that tells you they're mirroring your emotions, and then they will label the emotion for you: sadness, anger, frustration. And then you learn what your own emotions are expressing. You learn how to label them. Now, I have had clients who have great difficulty with this. They can't do step number one of labeling their emotions or recognizing them. So what they do is they do things like they consult an emotion wheel. This you can find on the internet very easily. And they look through the wheel of emotions and try to figure out if they can match up the emotion on the wheel to what they're feeling. And believe it or not, that's very, very helpful. But you need to label the emotion before you know what to do with it, right? So once you have figured out what the emotion is, maybe, for example, recently I was under a lot of stress and I was a little bit helpless about finding a solution. And a friend of mine threw out an answer to me that really, didn't make any sense. And I got irritated. I got really irritated because it was of no use, no help. And I was already in a bad mood. And so I barked a really sarcastic comment out to her. And I really, in that moment, felt a lot of guilt and empathy for her. I'd hurt her. And so I took a moment and I took a few breaths and I calmed myself down and I thought, okay, that was really uncalled for. And I know where it came from, but she did not deserve that. She was actually trying to help. But I was so frustrated and overwhelmed that I just blurted out my frustration at her. So I knew that the thing to do in that case was just to go to her and apologize from my heart, which I did. And she accepted it very graciously, and we went on, and it was as if nothing had happened. It was very simple, a very quick solution. But I had to be intent on following my emotions, acknowledging my guilt and my empathy for her, and correcting, apologizing. So the correction or acting on our emotions is so very, very helpful in correcting our own inner imbalances. Coming back into alignment with who we really are, feeling better about ourselves, feeling that we are in mastery of our lives and that we can handle things just well enough. So how to master our emotions? Again, label them, reflect on what they're telling you, and then decide what you're going to do based on what you've learned from your emotions. How do you bring yourself back to balance? How do you bring the relationship back into a better state? And what this does require, is that you pause. You have to pause and you have to reflect what's going on here. Now, pausing is very awkward in our world. We are taught that if somebody says something or does something, we have to respond immediately. And that also is a big setup for relationship conflicts. So you also want to master the art of pausing. And you may, it may be just that you need to give yourself the permission and you need to practice it. And you just need to go away for a minute or two, breathe, and reflect. Or it may be that you need to take a few days and reflect because it's a really complicated situation. But you have to become okay with treating your emotions as important enough that they deserve your attention for a while before you give an answer. You know, we've all been in those situations where we are pressured into giving an answer to somebody. They need an answer and we have to give it. No, we don't. Our first responsibility is to ourselves, to make sure that whatever answer we give is in alignment with us. We also do it, we pause out of respect for the relationship because we don't want to go into something saying yes when we really mean no, and then creating a whole set of misunderstandings and hard feelings down the road. So it's really important that you master the art of the pause so you can really attend to your emotions. And you may also have to master certain phrases that respectfully set limits on how you answer to a person, how you respond to a person. You may have to say things like, I really need to consider what you've said, so I'm going to take a little bit of time and I will get back to you and give you my response. And again, that's kind of awkward for a lot of us. We're not taught to do that. But you might want to, put together some stock phrases that help you to set that limit. So emotions are our friends. They're not our enemies. If we master them, we master our lives in a beautiful way. So if you have found any value in any of what I've said, first of all, I would love to hear from you about how you're dealing with your emotions. What have you learned about how to deal with your emotions, and what challenges do you still have? Also, it would be great if you like, comment, as I just said, subscribe and share this video if you feel it's been of value. I would love to know how you feel, and I would love to engage on this topic further. So until we meet again, I hope you have the best time in mastering your emotions and therefore mastering your relationships. See you in the next video.